Hi, everyone. I am so excited to share with you today my guest, Kristin Loboda. I am really excited to have her here with us to talk about what Saint she's tripped over. So, before I get started, Kristin, I'm going to tell everyone how how I met you in person, in the real lives.
Great.
So, back when we lived in Phoenix, I was in an endow group, and I was always late. I would sit in the back row and try and sneak in quietly after dropping off my two little ones who had either lost shoes or whatever it was that made us late on the way. And I would sit next to the sweetest girl who always would smile really big and pull out a chair for me and make me feel not quite as embarrassed for being late.
That's funny.
And we had gotten to talking, and I knew her name was Kristen, and we were talking after class one day, and our sweet teacher, Claire Dwyer, walked up and she was like, "Now you guys have met, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is Kristen." And she was like, "Okay, hey, this is Joy's mom. This
Mm.
is the mom of the little girl that the whole world prayed for. The whole world prayed that this little girl would have a miracle." And it just, I think I was speechless because to meet someone in person who you feel like you know in a very intimate and special way and that you've prayed for and you've prayed for their family is it takes your breath away to be standing there in front of a family that has experienced a true miracle. So that is how I met Kristen, and I continued to go to the Endow group and would sit next to Kristen whenever I could, and she just seriously lights up a room. Her smile, her gentle voice, her insight to things is absolutely beautiful. So that is how I met Kristen. And so, Kristen, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I didn't remember all of those details, but I remember seeing you in the back of the room, definitely. And I always felt the same way with you. There was always like this kindred spirit of sorts, kind of like Holy Spirit connection. But thank you for having me. I'm super grateful. I'm super grateful for that. It reminds me of going back in that time in Phoenix of just being so loved and so surrounded during that time of a lot of pain and then of course the miracle and all the things that happened. But then we had, we weren't even living there at the time, and then we ended up moving there. And so I think back of my time in Phoenix with um like my most beautiful memories are the people,
Yeah.
the love and the acceptance and that I received. So thank you for sharing that, course, for holding us close and
Mhm.
praying for our joy. She is now 7, which
Oh
is
my word.
no. So I'm a mom of 5. We have our oldest is 16, and then Joy is the youngest and she is 7. Um yeah, and we live in Ave Maria, Florida. I'm a life coach, a Catholic life coach, which I love. I've been able to do that for the last 2.5 years. I work with women and take them through. I do like group coaching, and then I do private one on one coaching, really teaching women the art of managing their minds, which I love because it's the renewal of the mind. Christ tells us to think about what is good, beautiful, and holy, but how to sometimes there's tools and skills to do that.
Yes.
um, so I do mindset coaching, Catholic mindset coaching, and then also do strategic skill set coaching. So it's been a huge gift. I kind of pinch myself literally probably every time I get off of like a call. I'm just like, I can't believe I get to do this. Thank you, Lord. So super amazing. And yeah, we love living in Florida. I'm also a basketball coach. I was telling telling
I
her.
know. Before we started recording, you were telling me that, and I don't know how I didn't know that. That is just I think
It's
it's
like a little hidden life, but it actually when we're in season, it's a very big part of, you know, being mom, wife, having my own business, and then coaching a basketball team. But we love it. I love it. The family loves it. It always all the girls become part of the family. You know, it's just our big
yes, absolutely. That
yeah.
is so special. Well, about the life coach part, that
Huh.
is so fascinating to me. So, tell me a little bit about how do women find you? How do women kind of what are they looking for when they reach out to you? I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I have a website, KristinLoboda.com. I also share a lot via Instagram and Facebook. So those are probably the easiest ways to kind of get a hold of me. But really, I'm super passionate about working with women, you know, who have experienced there's kind of like three different avenues that we go down, but like either trauma or difficulties in their marriage, or
Mhm.
just even that mom burnout, that fatigue in their motherhood. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
all of those things are just such real things that I think for me, why did I become a Catholic life coach? You know, had done actually it spurred after Joy's accident, which you were sharing just about the miracle. Our daughter Joy, who is now
Mhm.
7, was in a near drowning accident, and when we found her in the months after, or at least the first 6 weeks, we didn't really know first if she would survive, and then if you know she would wake up, if she would be normal, if her brain would be okay, all these
Yeah.
things. And she's just a complete and total miracle. She went without a heartbeat for over 30 minutes. The doctors, you know, for years that we lived in Phoenix are just like, I still like the chances of her surviving are just so slim to none when you look at like the numbers and all these things. So, um, but the after fact of, or the aftermath, I should say, of, you know, just experiencing that trauma and going through all that was really
Yes.
challenging for me. Of course, I was super elated that my girl survived and that God was so gracious and just so faithful and loved us so much to give her back to us. Um, and then the other coin of it was that I suffered a lot of trauma and I had severe PTSD from finding her. And
Yes.
of course I knew what PTSD was. But at the same time, like I never experienced anything like that. And so um it really took a toll on our marriage.
Yeah.
And we kind of dealt with things separately after that first year and I was going through so much. And so God and his faithfulness, like I was really blessed to be paired with a Catholic counselor, and she journeyed with me for about 2 years, and she was just total godsend, so lovely, so great at her craft. And I remember when we were, you know, maybe like on our last session or almost on our last session, she said something like this. Now, this is what I heard. I don't know if these were her exact words, but she's almost like, "Okay, Kristen, I think we're done here." You know, time to like and I remember I knew she was like, "Right?" But my heart kinda dropped because I
Yes.
was like, "Oh my gosh." Because trauma when you dig into trauma, it brings up other traumas and
Sure.
things come up, and so
It does. It's layers. It's like anytime anytime there's trauma, it's like, okay, there's layers and layers and layers. And as you speak about this part of it, you realize that, okay, well, there was something from another event that is why I handle things the way I do, is why I relate to people the way I do, is why I
yeah,
am scared to relate to people the way I do. And it's, yeah, it's layers for sure.
yeah, and it's just such a intense part of healing, really.
Mhm.
And so for me, when she said that, I knew she was right, but again, she, you know, basically saying like, "Hey, Kristen, I think we're done here. You know, like my job is done. You're doing better." But my heart dropped because I thought, "Oh my gosh!" And I didn't have the language then, but I can express it now. Like I had dove so much into the past, and I didn't really have the tools to live in the present and build for the future.
Yes.
And of course, I wasn't able to be like spill that out, but that's what it was. Like I dove into the past, but didn't have the skills and the tools to now live in the present and build toward the future. And so we ended up having a lot of repair in our marriage, which was a grace of God. That's a whole nother story. And moved to back to Florida. Um, and I actually was introduced to a life coach, someone who had worked with the women's school. January Donovan is a really good friend of mine now, and then I knew her in college, and so I decided to invest in myself and do this course. Again, it was like a grace filled moment, and when I started doing growth work and really diving into like mindset, even what that word kind of fascinated me. I was like, oh, what does that even mean? Um,
Right.
basically, what you think about expands, and the renewal of the mind, and
Mm.
um, how that can bring about so much peace, and then hope. You know, I started learning skills and tools that I was like, why aren't we teaching these to our kids? Like it's
Yes.
like there's so many things
These are
about
good tools. We should tell people about them.
us. And it really began to shift and change my life
Yeah.
um, from the inside out. And I like when I get excited about something though, I'm just like, oh my gosh, Lord, you did this for me. Okay, I want to do this for other people. And so I think I always share this story about life coaching for me because it was a pretty immediate change in my life. That My son woke up and I was doing like I had woke up early, was taking my prayer time, and then doing some growth work. And he was probably, I don't know, 12 at the time. He was like, Mom, can you keep doing, and at the time I was doing a course called, through the women's school. He's like, can you keep doing that women's school work? He's like, you're so much more peaceful. And because of that, we're all so much more peaceful. And I was like, yes, my son. Yes, I get what you're saying. And I 100% agree. And don't worry, I'm not going to stop doing this. And
Oh,
he just
that's
recognized,
incredible and so insightful that he could see the change in you,
yes.
you know?
And so did my husband. I have to say, after like a couple months, he was like, all right. Because he had, of course, agreed that I could sign up to do this. But he was like, okay, tell me what you're doing, 'cause something's a changing. And I was like, okay, let me tell you all the things, because of course, when I started, I don't know if you're like this, but I'm always like, my husband has to do the exact same thing, and I want him to experience the exact same growth and all the things that I'm doing. And
Totally.
but I was patient because I was like, you know what, I really want to learn and kind of have this, transformation. And he saw it as well. So, and then I got was able to get trained through the women's school to become a life coach, and then also through Metanoia Catholic, they specifically train Catholic life coaches. And so it's been a gift, such a gift for me, my clients, my family. So yeah.
So beautiful. I relate to that so much in that that's how this journey started with the saints. It was like as soon as I started this journey of getting to know saints, I realized most Catholic people do have a story of a saint that's come along beside them or that they just run into over and over and over. And it might be for their whole life, it might be for a specific season. But I was like, okay, we got to tell these stories. We've got to tell the world about these friends that have gone before us that love our Jesus so much and want to intercede for us all the time.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. So, with that, I'm really excited because I don't even know who it is yet. So I'm ready. Who is
Oh,
it? Drum roll.
well, I did have to pray and think because that you kind of like go through all the saints of like that been really
Yes.
important for you. And the one that I just really was like, oh yeah, this has been one of the most impactful saints is Saint. I guess we call her Mother Teresa, but Saint Mother Teresa. Um,
Yes.
and for me, she just always pops up.
Mm. Don't you
She's
love that?
I love it. I love it. I
Ah.
know it's I think what captured me from the very beginning, I was younger. I high school or something when, she was really becoming known. And, when you're in that high school stage, you're really looking to whether I don't think we did not have social media or anything like that, but whether
Right.
it's says are very, people that are out there and like influential people and things, you're just influenced by a lot of things. And I remember seeing Mother Teresa and distinctly thinking, oh my gosh, now that's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
It's- You know, she wasn't the one that was wearing all the things, or like even if you looked at her feet or her
Yes.
hands, but she, and it changed kind of the definition of beauty for me, of women's beauty. It
Yeah.
was like that the capacity to really shine and affect, a person's heart for good, for
Yeah.
for truth. And so that was originally, I just was always like stunned by her.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. The fact that people of so much power and influence wanted to have an audience with her,
mhm,
that always surprised me. Like,
yeah,
why are these presidents seeking her approval, really?
yeah,
Not just advice, but they wanted her to kind of sign off on whatever they were doing and speak at banquets and speak at events,
yeah,
and she stayed so true to the message of Christ that blew me away.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. She's
And
so
she was, we look at her and I think it's like she was so peaceful, so beautiful. She had, that's why people were just drawn to her. But she was also like relentless, fearless. And I think of her calling, she became a nun. And I don't know, I think that took maybe 10 years or whatever the process is. And then she taught for 20 years. And then to have a call within a call, you know, I just see that as it's there's so much boldness when you're older and you start something new, or like you go on a different path. And
Mhm.
even be like critics or from your inner circle, of like, wait a second, you're supposed to be at the school and you're supposed to be doing this. And she just heard the call and was like relentless and fearless about it. And the amount of faith that took, that always gives me just pause, because she kind of made it, not made, but like she was living the life, the dream of this religious, sister. And then she hears our Lord and she's like, all right, with no necessarily clear path.
Yeah, to see someone so single-minded
Yeah,
as far as, "This is what I have heard him ask me to do, and I'm gonna go forward with that." I mean,
totally.
I can't even choose which apple I'm gonna buy at the grocery store, you know? Like,
Yes. Yes.
how do you do that? How do you stay so focused and so single-minded? It's so beautiful.
It really isn't. It's such a gift. I mean, and I think one of the things that drew me, and I know drew probably the whole world, was just like her simplicity.
Yeah.
So I love, um even like within the life coaching, it's something that for me, I love a very simple, intentional life. That was like a dream of mine to like create that for our family. And that was one of the reasons that we ended up moving to Ave Maria. And, but it's also challenging to do that. Like when you say no to things, it's almost like, it's a skill to be able to learn how to do that.
It
And yes,
is.
but your life becomes so much clearer. Um, I do feel like there's a lot more fulfillment. And she was just the ultimate example of that, because even for her, like, the famous quote of, she says, God doesn't ask great things. He asks us to do small things with great love. I mean, who doesn't love that quote, right?
Right.
It's just awesome. But it's like when I take it down to like, it's through the mundane things in our life that our life becomes extraordinary.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
like family life. It's the mundane of like making the dinner every night and sitting down at the table and setting that routine. And this is what we do. And sometimes it ebbs and flows with sports and all the things, but like, this is what we do. But that's what makes like our family life extraordinary.
Mhm.
Set that. Um, and so I always just that's what I think of her. Like even I'm like when I'm thinking like of simpleness, I'm like, and even her outfit, or not her outfit, her holy religious
Yes, it's very
clothes.
simple.
It's very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that has really struck me over the last couple years is just that how Christ, he knows, especially a mother's heart, and that we can't always get away for XYZ, mass or adoration or whatever it is, but that he will meet us in those mundane things if we approach it with the right attitude and with a cheerful heart, that he'll meet us at the dishes and he'll meet us at dinner and he'll meet us when we're folding the eighth load of laundry and wondering where are all these clothes coming from.
Oh gosh, yes, totally. No, I mean it's true. And even having, I mean, I love the life of the religious. We can learn so much from them. Of course that y- the the routines that we set as moms. I mean, one of my dreams is um to be a peaceful and present mom. I mean, that's I hold that like I have like a sheet that I have that says that like I am a peaceful and present mom. And then it's like, okay, well, how do I achieve that?
Yes. Yeah.
How do I achieve that dream? And for me, and I know a lot of women, it comes from having these rhythms and routines, just like the
Mhm.
religious. I mean, there, you know, is pure intimacy with Christ. I mean, that's one of my dreams as well, too. But like they have certain things that they do. And so as a mom, of five kids, um, it's very intentional. Even playing a game with with my kids. I've never there are certain games I like. I shouldn't say I never like games, but like I don't love to just sit on the floor and play shoots and ladders or whatever.
I am the same way, and I felt guilty about that for the longest time. My husband can do it for hours. He's so good at it. I am not so good.
Right. And so it's like if I choose to do that, knowing that I'm doing that because I'm being present to my kids. I also can choose, I really love to go outside and throw the football or play basketball or, so we can also choose things like that. But even book time at night,
Yeah.
it's never been, I just want my kids to go to bed. I'm like,
Yes.
all right, it's time,
It is
bed.
time. I'm clocking out. Yeah.
Right. No, we're not reading books. We're not singing a song. We're going to say a
Yep.
prayer and we're going to bed. How
Yeah,
wonderful.
exactly.
But my little girls now, they're not so little, but we still call them the little girls, who are 7 and 10, I have more time. Like life does shift and change as the kids get a little older. They love reading books.
Yeah.
They love me laying down in their bed and
Yep.
reading. And so probably 4 out of the 5 nights that I do it every week, I have to be like, "All right, Kristen, this is your Monday knack. Like this is the thing
Yeah.
you get to love your girls through." And it does become extraordinary because I'm doing it because I don't necessarily want to. I just want them to be fed. But also it's a point of like, bonding and communicating and being present and creating peace in our home. So yes.
Yeah. Something that you said about, when you have to say no to things, and especially, like, the voices in your inner circle can be like, "Well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you volunteering for this? Why aren't you doing this?" And I had a mentor once tell me, "Every yes you say to something else outside the home is a no to your family." And when you are saying no to like, really think about that yes that you're giving to someone else. Is your family in a place where they can have a no right now? Or is your family in a place where they need you to say yes to them? So flip the conversation. And when you're saying no to something, remember that you're just saying yes to your family. You're saying yes to being present. You're saying yes to not being rushed or not being stressed or whatever it is. And if that XYZ thing is supposed to happen, it'll happen whether you do it or not. And that was so life-changing for me. It was like weight lifted off my shoulders because I was always the yes person. People
Mhm.
knew that if everyone else had said no, that they could ask me and I would take care of it. But to what cost? To
Sure.
what cost of my sleep or staying up late or being short-tempered or whatever it was, or forgetting things. That was my big thing is I would say yes to so many things, I would forget things because I had overcommitted.
Overextended.
Yes.
And our I mean, being mom, being the heart of the home, all of that. I mean, boundaries, they were made to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And they're made to keep our families safe,
Yep.
made to keep our kids safe. And so within the context of relationships. And so having that or our marriages. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that like, I took a phone call when I was supposed to be making dinner. That was part of the plan.
Yes.
And dinner is 45 minutes late because I'm talking to a friend who really needs me.
Yeah.
But doing that continuously, like where I can say, "Hey, can I call you tomorrow at 10? I'm gonna have some free time," because those boundaries set into place of like having that peaceful home that our kids are longing for, you
Yeah.
know, husband needs. That
Yes.
and and so there's a skill to it. And it doesn't mean that we aren't still helping or we aren't still volunteering. I think it's just guarding the true dream, the true mission that the Lord's given us.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, even Mother Teresa, she could have stayed, and I know she impacted so many of her students, and she probably would have continued to do that. God had a different dream for her,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
she went and did it. I mean,
Did it. She did it out of
yeah,
obedience. And how many times do we hesitate to be obedient because we think, "Oh, but what about this, 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 this?" He doesn't need our "but what abouts." He's got that covered. He needs
yeah,
us to be obedient. And we
yeah.
tell our kids that all the time. When I say stop running, it might be because I see a car coming that you can't see because you're not tall enough to see. I need you just to obey. Don't ask questions. Don't turn around and say why. Just do it. And then we can talk about why.
Right.
But how many times with the
Mhm.
Lord do we ask our questions first instead of being obedient first? I do that all the time. Like,
Right.
why? Why do you want me to do that? What's that
Right.
about?
And he's probably like, "Of course. Of course you do, Kate. This is
Yeah.
just how you are," just like we do with our kids.
Yeah.
It's like that ultimate patience with us, like, "Yeah, all right. Well, she kinda has to get bumped around or something, and then she'll come back around to this." But it it is I mean, it's true that obedience she had, and and ultimately that desire for intimacy. I mean, I'm always struck by, because at the time, Princess Di, I would
Remember
like
that.
text them, and again, I was in high school, and I remember when Princess Di, tragically died, and then Mother Teresa, I think she died a
It was
day or
the
2.
same week, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
late. It was and kind of during the funeral and all that.
Yes.
And I remember hearing someone say, like, well, that was her prayer, was to be like, have that ultimate humility. Like,
Yeah.
God, even in her dying, honored that
Yes.
humility that she had because we weren't able to. I mean, I'm sure there was people celebrated her life and all of that, but it was overshadowed by this major thing that happened in the world.
Yeah.
Um, Princess Di, sadly. So even in that, I'm always
Mhm.
amazed. I'm like, even the accolades and all the things, she just did it out of obedience and out of love
Yeah.
for our Lord.
Mhm.
and then stepping into, like, even have you read the book, I think it's Come to the Light, Come See the Light, oh my gosh, I'm probably butchering that. I should know what that book is because I've read it a couple times. It's her autobiography where they took her writings and I guess I don't know if you would call it her autobiography, but where they took her writings and you got a really big imprint into what she was thinking and feeling, and even they might call it the dark night of the soul and all of that.
Haven't read it, but I have heard of it, and I've hesitated to read it, to be
Sure.
honest. And I don't even know why I've hesitated. I think I know why I've hesitated. I think
Hmm.
it I think it makes me sad for her in some way. It makes me it makes me wish that she had felt more peace and joy in what she was doing and not so alone.
Hmm.
But then I think, okay, how much more beautiful was her obedience
Hmm.
in that she wasn't getting these constant consolations and joy and happiness from whatever she was doing. She was obedient and she was lonely while she was doing it. And she was had moments of despair while she was doing it. And it's like, okay, it's really easy to be obedient when everything's going right and things are happy and
And when it all feels right. I mean,
yeah.
it's called Come Be My Light. I did butcher that.
Okay, okay.
Yes, and it is a great read. I've read it a couple times. I probably should read it again. Usually what I don't know, one time I was on a retreat. My brother's a priest, and so I think I had gone to where his friary was, and it was like the one book that was in the room. And I was like, "All right, Lord, I'll read this."
I
And
guess
so
I'll read this.
yeah, I was like, "This?" Um, but I found it more like comforting just
Mm,
to know like her humanness.
yeah, I need to
Struggle.
read it.
Yeah, we struggle with that there's, because our thoughts do create how we feel, and even so, like when she might not have felt this, that those feelings of intimacy, but she always chose by a choosing of her will of like, well, Lord, you're my Lord. I love you. I thirst for you. I come back to you. I do this all for you. And so that then, fueled her actions. And when I read it, I know, and as I just felt her real humanness, that there are days that we don't feel like praying.
Yeah,
There are days when we don't, like if we set our alarms to get out of bed to go exercise in the morning, that we like turn it off and we roll over.
yeah,
And so it's kind of that in between stage of then like, okay, what do we choose? And she continued to choose him when she had those days, when she had those moments when and that's my prayer, you
yeah,
know, it's in the mix of life because some days are going to be really good and some days are going to be challenging. And how do I get myself to a place where um where either one is okay, where either one I can embrace and rejoice in. Um so she teaches me a lot about that. Um I do love her. Just talking about her, I'm like, I do love you, Mother Teresa. Pray for me. Pray for my family.
one of my favorite things about the saints is we I mean, especially someone so recent, we
Yes.
we saw her. We know she was a human, she lived, and so in that, knowing her, we know it's possible. It is possible for us to choose
Mhm.
obedience and to choose to give it to him every day, even as a human.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah,
possible to become a saint. I think I remember her saying something like, well, when sisters, would want to become saints, and she was like, well, that should be normal because we should become what we're called to be, you
yeah,
know? And so, not claiming that she was a saint, but like, that should be normal. Yes. We should all be striving for that, and that should happen. because we have the grace, we have the sacraments. Um, I also loved her too when I think about, like, when you think about saints, you just think of them like praying and being so nice and peaceful and calm and kind. And she was those things, but she was like so fierce, like even with her words and her actions and what she did and how she spoke. Um, she didn't mince words.
Yes, she was very clear about her words. She didn't try and sugarcoat truth,
Mhm.
and that's oh my goodness.
Even with her sisters too, I know there's a lot of stories I think of her, like they lived a rigorous life. She did a lot of, like, training, and there was a lot of expectations. I mean, they were supposed to smile
Yeah.
all the time, and it's even that with our children, I think of that, like, that we have a responsibility to train our children. Now, we're training and retraining. We just started retraining again on, what it means that, like, after dinner that we all clean up, and we don't go anywhere until it's cleaned up.
Oh, I relate to that.
And so, but we've been training that for many, many years. And Matt and I just were like, all right, we just need to recalibrate here. Let's do some retraining. Um, and I think she didn't shy away from that as far as like doing that kind of correction and that, and which is what we're called to as parents. I think there's such a need for that, to really teach our kids how to be, um, well, saints, but effective and contributing humans that know, that have these skill sets of even what it means to like say hi to adults and to look them in the eyes, or you know uh, just simple things like that, how to respect
Yes,
our teachers, how to be a loyal friend,
yes.
how words, can cut, what that even means. So yes, I like that part because being a basketball coach, I think it fits right into like, okay, we're a team at home too. Let's
Love
go.
that.
Yes.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your love of Mother Teresa with us today.
mm,
I It's just perfect. She's so special, and I'm so glad that you shared her with us.
oh, you're welcome. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I love what you're doing here. I can't wait to dive in and listen to all the stories that you've had. Because it is such a good reminder of like, hey, these are our friends. Pray for us.
I
Because
just Yeah, I love that there's really a saint for every single walk of life, everything you've been through. It floors me that there's so and that's one of my absolute favorite treasures of the church is that there really is a saint that knows what you're going through. There really is.
that's such a beautiful thought,
I love
that
that.
knows and understands and can hold you up,
Yes.
pray for you.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I love that.
Mhm.
Even
Well,
for our kids to help them to continue to discover the saints and how
yes,
important. So,
absolutely. Well, Kristen, thank you. And for those of you out there that want to connect with Kristen, I'm going to put all of her information in the show notes. So be sure and look her up.
oh,
Um,
awesome.
maybe you know someone that could really use her life coaching skills from a Catholic perspective, or maybe it's you. Maybe you heard this information and thought, oh my goodness, I really need that. So I will put that in my show notes. And you guys have a wonderful day.
All right. God bless you.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us for Tripping Over the Saints. I hope you enjoyed meeting our new friend, and I cannot wait to introduce you to more new friends. If you would like to become a patron of this podcast, we would love for you to join in at Patreon. The donations you make go directly to cover the hosting, technical support, and donations we make to our speakers and podcasters and missionaries that come on the show to introduce us to someone new. Have a great day, and I cannot wait to talk to you again.